What happens when a talk show host decides to challenge the greatest actor of his generation? A man who has spent 6 decades perfecting the art of intensity, who brought Travis Bickle and Vito Corleone and Jake LaMotta to life with such ferocity that audiences forgot they were watching performances. What you're about to witness is one of the most satisfying reversals ever captured on daytime television. The moment when Joy Behar discovered that Robert De Niro didn't become a legend by backing down from confrontation. The View studio didn't just go quiet. It watched in stunned silence as the hunter became the hunted. And for the first time in the show's history, it wasn't the guest who walked off the stage. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to subscribe and drop your thoughts in the comments, because this confrontation will change everything you think you know about who controls a television interview. The View studio carried an unusual electricity that Thursday morning. Word had spread through the audience that Robert De Niro was the guest, and the energy was different from the usual daytime television crowd. There were film students who had studied his work frame by frame. There were older viewers who remembered when Taxi Driver changed cinema forever. There were people who simply wanted to breathe the same air as a man who had defined American acting for half a century. When Robert De Niro walked onto the set, the applause was thunderous and sustained. At 81 years old, he moved with the deliberate precision of a man who had learned to command attention simply by existing in a space. There was something in his eyes that suggested he was already assessing the room, already calculating, already several moves ahead of everyone else. He settled into the guest chair with the economy of movement that had made him famous. No wasted gestures, no performative warmth, just a nod to the audience and a quiet thank you that somehow carried more weight than most people's entire speeches. Whoopi welcomed him with genuine reverence, recognizing perhaps a fellow traveler in the world of entertainment survival. Sarah Haynes looked slightly starstruck, as anyone would be in the presence of Vito Corleone, Travis Bickle, and Jake LaMotta, all wrapped in one human form. The audience was still buzzing with the thrill of being in the presence of living cinema history. Joy Behar watched from her seat with an expression that regular viewers would recognize. It was the look she wore when she had decided that today's guest needed to be taken down a few pegs. She had her notes arranged in front of her with unusual precision, and there was something almost hungry in the way she was waiting for her moment. "Robert De Niro," Whoopi began. "It is such an honor to have you here. We want to talk about your incredible career, your new project, and everything you've contributed to American cinema." "Thank you, Whoopi," De Niro replied, his voice carrying that distinctive New York rasp. "It's good to be here." Then Joy leaned forward, and the atmosphere shifted immediately. "So, Bob," Joy began, using the familiar nickname without invitation. "Let's talk about something real. You've become very political in recent years. The Tony Awards speech, the rallies, the interviews where you call certain politicians names. Some people say you've become more famous for your politics than your acting lately. Don't you think that diminishes your legacy as an artist?" The question was designed to put De Niro on the defensive from the first moment. But the man who had stared down directors, mobsters, and his own demons for 60 years simply tilted his head slightly, studying Joy with the same intensity he brought to preparing for roles. "I'm not sure I understand the premise of your question," he said slowly. "Are you suggesting that having political opinions diminishes an artist's work? Because if that's the case, you'd have to dismiss most of the great artists in history." "I'm suggesting that there's a difference between having opinions and being inflammatory," Joy pressed. "The profanity, the name-calling. It's not exactly dignified, is it? For someone of your stature." De Niro was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice was calm, but carried an undercurrent that made several audience members shift in their seats. "Let me ask you something, Joy. You sit at this table every day and share your political opinions, often quite forcefully, sometimes with language that could be called inflammatory. Is that undignified, or is it only undignified when I do it?" The counter was so smooth, so precise that Joy seemed momentarily caught off guard. Her face re-ended slightly. "That's different. I'm a talk show host. It's my job to have opinions. And I'm a citizen," De Niro replied. "It's my right to have opinions. The difference is that my opinions seem to bother you more than yours bother me. I wonder why that is." The observation landed with surgical precision. Joy's expression tightened. "Let's talk about your recent work then," she said, clearly trying to regain control of the conversation. "You've made a lot of films in the last 20 years. A lot of comedies. A lot of films that critics would say are beneath your talent. Meet the Fallers, Dirty Grandpa, The Intern, the list goes on. Has Robert De Niro become more interested in paychecks than art? The accusation was brutal in its directness, but De Niro simply smiled, and there was something almost pitying in his expression. You know, Joy, I've made over 100 films in my career. Some of them are masterpieces. Some of them are entertainments. Some of them are experiments that didn't work. That's what happens when you actually create things instead of just commenting on what other people create. He paused, letting the words settle before continuing. And for the record, The Intern was a film about respecting older workers in a youth-obsessed culture. The comedies brought joy to millions of families. Is that less valuable than another dark crime drama? Who decides what's worthy of an actor's talent? You. He leaned forward slightly, his famous intensity now fully engaged. What have you created, Joy? In your entire career, what have you made that will outlast you? I'm genuinely curious because you seem very comfortable judging the work of others. I'm wondering what gives you that authority. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Joy's face went through several expressions before settling on defensive anger. I've had a very successful career in comedy and television. I've been doing this for decades. So have I, Darrow replied simply. The difference is that when I leave a room, something I created stays behind. A performance, a character, a moment that people will watch long after we're both gone. What stays behind when you leave a room, Joy? Besides the echo of criticism, the studio audience gasped audibly. This was not how interviews usually went. The guest was supposed to be on the defensive, not turning the table so completely. That's quite an attack, Joyce said, her voice rising. I'm just asking questions. That's what journalists do. Is that what you are, a journalist? Darrow Unk's eyebrow raised slightly. I've been interviewed by journalists, real ones, people who have done the research, who ask thoughtful questions, who are genuinely interested in understanding something. What you're doing feels more like provocation for its own sake. He looked around the studio as if seeing it for the first time. This is entertainment, Joy. We both know that. And there's nothing wrong with entertainment. But let's not pretend that what happens at this table is journalism. You're not holding anyone accountable. You're not uncovering truth. You're creating conflict because conflict gets ratings. Joy stood up slightly in her chair, her defensive posture evident. Now you're attacking the integrity of our show. I'm describing what I observe, Darrow said calmly. You invited me here presumably to talk about my work. Instead, you've spent the last 5 minutes questioning my patriotism, my artistic integrity, and my career choices. That's not an interview, that's an ambush. And I've survived better ambushes than this one. Whoopi tried to intervene. I think maybe we should redirect. No, Whoopi. Let her continue, Darrow said, his eyes never leaving Joy's face. I'm curious to see what else she has prepared. What's next on your list, Joy? My marriages, my children, my age. Pick your target. I've been attacked by better than you, and I'm still here. The challenge was delivered with such quiet confidence that Joy seemed momentarily frozen. When she recovered, her voice had an edge of desperation. I'm not attacking you. I'm asking legitimate questions about public statements you've made. No, you're not, Darrow corrected her. Legitimate questions seek understanding. Your questions seek to diminish. There's a significant difference, and after 60 years of interviews, I can tell which is which in the first 30 seconds. He shifted in his chair, settling into a more comfortable position as if preparing for a longer engagement. Let me tell you something about my career since you seem so concerned about it. I've worked with Scorsese, Coppola, Bertolucci, Dilma Man. I've played boxers, gangsters, taxi drivers, comedians, fathers, monsters. I've gained weight, lost weight, learned languages, studied with real people to understand their lives. That's what I've done with my time. His voice dropped to something almost intimate. What I haven't done is sit in a chair and pass judgment on people who actually take risks, who put themselves out there, who fail publicly and get back up again, because that would require a kind of courage I'm not sure you possess. He let the words land before continuing. Do you know what it takes to gain 60 lb for a role? To learn to box professionally, to spend months with actual mobsters studying their mannerisms, to transform yourself so completely that your own family doesn't recognize you. That's what I've done. That's the commitment I've made to my craft. And now someone who has never taken those kinds of risks wants to lecture me about artistic integrity. The accusation of cowardice, delivered so quietly, seemed to land harder than any shouting could have. How dare you question my courage? Joyce snapped. I've been speaking truth to power for 30 years. Have you? De Niro tilted his head. Or have you been speaking comfortable opinions to audiences who already agree with you? There's a difference between courage and confirmation bias. Joy. Courage is saying something when it might cost you. What has any opinion you've ever expressed actually cost you? The question seemed to strike something deep. Joy's face was now fully red, her composure cracking. You don't know anything about my career or my sacrifices. That's true, Darrow acknowledged. And you don't know anything about mine. The difference is I haven't spent the last 10 minutes pretending I do. You came into this interview with assumptions and accusations. I came in ready to have a conversation. Only one of us is doing their job properly. Sarah Haynes finally found her voice. Maybe we should talk about the new film. I'd be happy to talk about the film, Darrow said, turning to Sarah with something that might have been gratitude. That's what I came here to do. I'm just waiting for your colleague to decide whether she wants to have a professional conversation or continue whatever this is. He turned back to Joy. I've been in this business since 1963. I've seen everything. I've been praised too much and criticized too much. I've been called a genius and I've been called washed up. And through all of it, I've kept working because that's what artists do. We work, we create, we put things into the world. His voice hardened slightly. What you do is different. You react, you comment, you critique, and there's a place for that in the world. But don't mistake it for creation. Don't mistake sitting in judgment for actual contribution. And don't mistake your platform for wisdom. Joy stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. I don't have to sit here and be lectured by you. No, you don't. Darrow agreed calmly. You're free to leave whenever you want. That's the beautiful thing about freedom, isn't it? The same freedom that allows me to express my political opinions allows you to walk away when someone challenges yours. The irony was not lost on anyone in the studio. Joy had spent years telling guests what she thought. Now faced with someone who told her what he thought with equal force, she was the one who couldn't handle it. This interview is over, Joy announced, her voice shaking with barely controlled emotion. The interview was over the moment you decided it was going to be an attack instead of a conversation. Darrow replied, I just decided to defend myself. If that makes you uncomfortable, I'd suggest examining why. Joy gathered her notes with trembling hands. You're impossible to interview. No, I'm just impossible to bully. There's a difference. Most hosts figure that out quickly and adjust. You seem to be having more difficulty with the concept. He looked at her with something that might have been pity. I've played men who would terrify you, Joy. I've spent months living inside the minds of killers and criminals and broken souls. Do you really think someone who can do that is going to be rattled by a few hostile questions from a talk show host? Joy was already moving toward the edge of the set, unable or unwilling to continue. You know what the saddest part of this is? Darrow continued, his voice following her. You could have had a real conversation. You could have asked me about working with Scorsese for 50 years, about what it was like to transform my body for Raging Bull, about founding Tribeca to help rebuild downtown Manhattan after 9/11, about what acting has taught me about human nature. He shook his head slowly. But you didn't want any of that. You wanted controversy. You wanted a fight. Well, you got one. I'm just sorry it wasn't the kind of fight you were expecting. He took a breath, his voice softening just slightly. You know what Marty Scorsese taught me? He taught me that the best work comes from honesty, from being willing to show the ugliest parts of yourself on screen, from not hiding behind pretense. That's what I've tried to do my whole career. Be honest, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it costs me. He gestured toward where Joy stood frozen. That's the difference between us, Joy. I've spent my life pursuing honesty, even painful honesty. You've spent yours pursuing conflict, even manufactured conflict. One of those things leaves something behind. The other one just leaves noise. Joy paused at the edge of the set, turning back one final time. You're rude and arrogant. Maybe, Darrow acknowledged. But I'm also honest, and I've found that people who call others rude and arrogant are often just upset that someone isn't showing them the difference they think they deserve. Smiled, and there was something almost kind in it. Go cool off, Joy. Watch some of my films. Maybe you'll understand something about what it actually means to commit to something fully, to risk failure publicly, to keep creating even when people say you should stop. That's what my life has been. What has yours been? With that final question hanging in the air, Joy Behar walked off the set of The View, leaving behind a silence that seemed to echo through the entire studio. The audience sat in stunned amazement. They had come expecting a celebrity interview. What they had witnessed was a masterclass in refusing to be diminished. Darrow turned to Whoopi with a slight shrug. I'm sorry about that. I came here to talk about my work. I'm still happy to do that if you want. Whoopi for once seemed at a loss for words. I think we all just witnessed something extraordinary. Not really, Darrow said simply. I just refused to accept the terms of the conversation she wanted to have. That's not extraordinary. That's just basic self-respect. Something I learned a long time ago. He looked at the audience. For anyone watching who feels like they have to accept it when someone tries to diminish them, you don't. You always have the choice to push back, to define yourself on your own terms, to refuse to be what someone else has decided you should be. His voice dropped to something almost gentle. That's what acting taught me. That identity is a choice. That we get to decide who we are moment by moment, scene by scene. And no one, no matter what platform they have, gets to take that choice away from us. The audience erupted into applause that seemed to go on forever. They had just watched one of the most famous actors in history demonstrate something more powerful than any film performance. The simple revolutionary act of refusing to be bullied. Sarah Haynes leaned over to Darrow. I have to say that was incredible. I've never seen anything like that. It wasn't incredible, Darrow replied with a slight shake of his head. It was just necessary. When someone comes at you with bad intentions, you have two choices. You can accept it or you can refuse to accept it. I chose to refuse. He looked toward where Joy had disappeared. I don't have any personal animosity toward her. I don't know her, but I know what she was trying to do, and I've spent too many years building something to let anyone tear it down for their entertainment. Whoopi nodded slowly. You know, in all my years on this show, I've never seen anyone turn the tables quite like that. That's because most people come here prepared to be guests, Darrow said. They're ready to smile and promote and take whatever comes at them. I came here ready to have a conversation. When the conversation turned into something else, I adapted. That's what actors do. We read the scene and respond to what's actually happening, not what we expected to happen. He turned to address the audience directly one final time. I want to say something to the young people watching. The ones who are trying to build something, create something, become something. There will always be people who try to diminish you, who question your motives, who suggest that your success is somehow illegitimate. Don't let them. Your work speaks for itself. Your life speaks for itself. You don't owe explanations to people who have already decided not to listen. Somewhere offstage, Joy Behar was probably already composing her defense. But in that studio, in that moment, there was no question about who had won. Robert Darrow had walked into an ambush and turned it into a triumph, not by shouting or losing his temper, but by simply being exactly who he was. A man who had spent 60 years learning how to command a room. A man who knew that true power wasn't about volume. It was about precision. And that was more than enough. What do you think about this incredible confrontation? Did Joy Behar get what she deserved, or was Darrow too harsh? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more stories that will absolutely leave you speechless.